veteranspride.org. Find them, use them, donate to them, because I have to tell you, these shadow boxes make a sense.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Elisa Show here on KUHS Worldwide Radio. We are in Denver, at least I'm in Denver right now, and I am so excited to be here with you. It is my second show, and as you can tell, hopefully, from the look on my face, if you're watching this live, or the tone of voice, I am overjoyed to be part of this radio station. It is my second show, and I'll stop counting at some point, but right now I am just still wanting to say thank you for you, to every one of you, for tuning in. And absolutely thank you to Henry for giving me this chance to be a host on this amazing station. So how are you? How are you today? I'd always like to start with this, asking everyone to take a deep breath in. So just do that for me. Just take a deep breath. And when you exhale, just exhale sort of a sense of joy and happiness into the world. Just share a little bit of yourself. And my hunch is if you do that a couple times, we will all feel it. Everybody listening is going to feel, just have a sense of sharing that, kind of like a little, I don't know, energy hug. So I hope you're doing well. I want to spend a little time today. First off, I want to do a shout out to veteranspride.org, my sponsor. They are amazing. And really, just Google them, veteranspride.org, and think about reaching out to them. It's an amazing organization. And what I want to spend some time doing today, since I'm still new, is tell you a bit about myself and what I do and the work I do. And then we're going to talk about money today. If you cued into my first show, I talked about why you shouldn't set New Year's resolution, which doesn't mean that I don't think you should try to change and improve your life. It just means I think there's another way to do it. And we're going to have that conversation all year on this show. I'm looking forward to your comments too. I'm going to try to really multitask today. I have my laptop with me, and so if you're on the Facebook site, by the end of the show, I should be able to find you there and see if you've made some comments. And I'm hoping to hear from you through just the entire week and through the year. What would be helpful? What do I say and do that is helpful for you? What would you like to know more about? Because while I love doing radio, I love this, it's about you. It's not about me. But we're going to start with a little stuff about me, just so you can remember who I am if you tuned in last week, and if you're new, so that we get to know each other. So, the Dr. Elisa Show. The doctor is real. It's not a medical doctor. I have a PhD in educational psychology. I also have a master's in geology, which was my whole first career, which is a sort of fascinating life journey. And I have a second master's in Jewish studies and Jewish mysticism. So I have a hard science side and I have a mystical side, and I will be bringing those together on this show through this psychology background. So today, for example, we are going to talk about money, and some of it's going to be the neuropsychology of money. So again, the psych part with a little mysticism and a little science, all pulled together. I am also an author, and I have written 2 books. The first one here is called The Way of the Well. It is a spiritual romance with some metaphysical lessons in it. And so if you like a little bit of romance, a little bit of adventure with some spirituality, I think you'll really enjoy this book. I actually have a second book too. I wrote this one with one of my dear, dear friends. It is called Pirate Wisdom, and it's a leadership book sort of based on Johnny Depp, right, and Jimmy Buffett. And it's fun, it's short, it's a cute little book, but it actually has some very good information about how to deal with organizations and the political atmosphere that we all find ourselves in any organization. Both of them are available on Amazon.com. You can Google my name, Elisa Robin, make sure there's a Y in there, and you'll find me on Amazon. So actually there's so many ways to find me, and I so want you to do that and be in touch with me. Facebook is one. You can buy the books on Amazon. I am also on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram. Okay. What else do I want to say about myself? Well, that's sort of interesting. I want to just tell you a little bit about my journey, and so why me? Why I am who I am. My first career was in geology, and I switched from a psychology major to geology, and I worked in an industry that was a little rough on my soul. Came out, changed complete focus, went back for a PhD in ed psych with no prereq, and which is unheard of, right? No prerequisites. And I had to support myself and pay for college, so I became an astrologer. I got through school, I got the PhD. It's kind of funny, I picture this sort of like by day serious psychology student and by night metaphysical astrologer. And that tells you something about my personality. I came out of school, began an academic career. I have just left that career. I've been an academic dean at different institutions for over 20 years, and am now here and have a private practice. You can find me on my website too, elisarobin.com. That's the other place to find me. So why radio? I really wanted to sort of talk about that, and why astrology. Okay, so let's do that. Why radio? I love being in front of groups of people. I love talking. I love sharing information. I mean, I was a prof for all those years, and I'm an avid reader. And I know that I'm really good at putting these disparate pieces together. What is the metaphysical side of money, but how do I make that real, and why is it hard to break a habit, and how do I change my life? All of that stuff. I love sharing information. And so this is, one way to do it. Another is on a stage in front of people, which is another way that I love to do it. So that's why radio. I do want to answer the why astrology, because it probably sounds a little odd. So if you know anything about psychologists, and about, in fact, if you've ever been in an organization, you probably at some point took a personality inventory, right? Most likely a Myers-Briggs, but maybe a DISC, or a hexagon, or a colors, or, I mean, there's just so many of them. It's just incredible. So here's the interesting thing about this, and I'm going to focus on Myers-Briggs, just in case you don't know the history of that. And let me also say, if you've taken it more than once, you might have taken it once when you were in a very hard driving environment that was very structured. And then your life may have changed, and you may have taken the exact same test when your life was a lot more fluid, a lot more creative, and you saw some changes. You also might find that on some of the points, you're really at the middle mark, and you're not sure how to interpret that. Okay, so that's really normal. So we know that the test, the inventory, can change based on our experience and where we are. Okay, so where did that test come from? Have you ever wondered about that? Where did it come from? Here's the history of Myers-Briggs, a short version, was a mother and daughter. The mother's last name was Briggs. And she was a little bit enamored of Carl Jung. And Carl Jung was the one who was very much into group consciousness, into myth and metaphor, and into archetypes. The notion of archetypes in psychology from Carl Jung. And she was enamored of the archetypes, and she actually started sort of daycare with the neighborhood and thought she could type children. She was probably typing them introvert, extrovert, is probably what she was doing. She got very, very into this. Her daughter grew up, went off to college, and that's the Myers part of the test. And the mother now really started to research and read and study and write to Carl Jung. Very, very deep involvement with it. Daughter graduates college, comes home, they work together, they struggle a bit with it, and they come up with this test. And they add not just that one measure, right, introvert, extrovert, but these other measures also. And what we have is this Myers-Briggs based on 4 different archetypes, which are measures of different elements of personality. Okay, so here's the question. Where did Carl Jung get archetypes? If you're guessing astrology, you're right. That was his sort of foundation part. Because yes, there are 12 signs, but those 12 signs actually are 6, sort of, if you can think about them on a line, 6 personality characteristics, one edge or the other. So the opposites in astrology then are much like an introvert-extrovert. That could be an Aquarius-Leo. So, just so you know, that, when I talk astrology, I'm not off in a world that sounds very, very esoteric. And it's much more complicated. And if you're into it, I'd love to do a show or 2 just on astrology. But that there's a place for it that we have found in psychology. So, okay, enough about me. But that's where I come from in terms of my thinking and my weaving things together. So what do I want to talk about today? Because I don't want to talk about me anymore. I'm done with that. Today I want to talk about where the show is going to go over the next year. And I have some great plans, and I have some guests lined up, and I'm so excited I can hardly contain myself. The first part, the sort of over theme, just the general theme here, is prosperity, abundance. And that sounds kind of vague, right? So we are going to talk about money, wealth, and our relationship to it. And we're going to move from we'll reach out into a little bit of that esoteric, mystical piece. We'll definitely focus on some of the neuropsychology, and there's a great deal of research out there that we can call scientific on the neuropsychology of money. Behavioral economics is another way of framing some of it, and some of the researchers cross over economics and psychology. And then with some actions in there also, because it's one thing to know, it's another thing to act on, and you've got to do both. My joke is always that if you want to win lotto, you at least have to buy a ticket, right? You have to do something. And so that is my focus on money, and we're going to start that conversation today. The show itself is going to move through that. It's going to move through that conversation. I have some guests that will come in and talk about philanthropy and gratitude and their own process and how they started businesses. So we're going to come at it from many different angles, but that's the major focus. So I call myself a wealth relationship expert. And why do I call myself that? Because I feel like I'm an expert in that field. There are actually people who get degrees in something called financial therapy, and I don't have that certification. I do have my PhD. I have studied and read, but there actually are people. There's a whole, in fact, they have a journal, the financial therapist something, right? They have a test you take and the whole bit. So I don't give people advice about money in terms of investments. I have like one basic rule, and that is spend less than you make and make sure you save some of that. I mean, that's it, right? That's sort of like that's my basic money advice in terms of the physical piece of money. But I have a lot of other awarenesses through my studies about what helps us find financial prosperity. The reason I'm focusing on financial prosperity and money is that what we do with money is often what we do in other places in our life. So what we do what we do in a microcosm is often what we do in a macrocosm. What we do here is what we do everywhere. And money is so emotionally charged in worlds that are based on money, right? There are places on this planet where their world, their ecosystem is not based on money, believe it or not. But we live in one that is. Money becomes a measure of personal value, of success, of pride, it's amazing the more you read about this. And honestly, it's not that good for humans. It messes with our minds tons of research. We'll get to it over the year. There's fascinating stuff out there, trust me. So I call myself a wealth relationship expert, and what I do with people is help them work through that relationship. We need to change our mind about money, and my mouth gets so dry when I do this, so excuse me. I can blame Colorado, right? It's just dry here. So we can talk about our relationship with money because the way we think about money governs our actions. And we know that to be true, right? The way we think about things, that's how we make decisions about how to act and how to behave. And when we treat money a certain way, we're exhibiting a deep part of our emotional life. Just say that money is a harder topic for most people than anything else. I don't know if this has happened to you, but I've had, strangers who will talk to me on the bus or something about their sex life. Very odd. It's a very odd thing. But people are more willing to talk about sex than money because money is so profoundly personal. Well, when it's that personal and we don't feel like we can talk about it and we feel like the amount of money we have gives us a sense of value and that we're judged on it, then you can see how it becomes this sort of deep topic that we got to be honest about. We got to dig into a little bit. So this show is without judgment. It's just talking about that. I have to tell you that I have met millionaires who said they spent their entire life worrying about their money, and that if they just had a few more $1 million, they'd be okay, and then they'd have enough. There's actually some research out there, believe it or not, on how much money makes somebody happy. And there is a level. The last research had it at around $75,000 a year, but that completely varies based on your life. But what we found is everybody thinks if they had double that maybe, or maybe half of that again, they'd finally be happy. And then they get that much, and they're no happier. Because more money doesn't actually bring more happiness. It often brings more stress. So, this isn't about how do you make more money, but I have to tell you that working with your attitude about money flows in easier, and you're more willing to save it. And so our choices change, and as our choices change, right, the world around us changes. The amount of money we bring in changes. What we save changes. So we become more abundant. Okay, so I do know. So we're talking about an emotional intelligence around money and sort of an intelligence around money, right? How to invest, where to put it, what to do. I'm not going to talk about that much, but I am going to talk about emotional intelligence and money. So some people have real problems, right? Some people are underemployed. There's not enough coming in. And so healing that relationship with money, sometimes it's a mental block we have about how much money we are allowed to make. And that may sound crazy, right? But I have had clients who have said to me, if I make more than my father made, I'll feel like I've betrayed him. Well, with inflation in here, you got to at least up it a little bit to deal with inflation. But we feel these limits. I've met women who said that they didn't think they were allowed to make more than their husband. That was their belief system. I have met people who said, I come from a culture of goodness and kindness, and if you're good and kind, then you don't make money. And my response is, if you're good and kind and you make money, you can be a philanthropist, and that's lovely, right? So there are ways to have that money and still be good and kind. But the problem is our culture, our parents, our grandparents, none of this out of meanness, right? It's simply the world we grew up in. Our social status taught us something about money, and our brain wired a certain way about money, and then we behave that way. It's why we're so proud of people when they're sort of first generation college student, college grad, because that takes a lot to change your point of view. My family doesn't go to college, but I can go to college. And we know that it takes family support often, but often it takes a sense of will to do something different, to say, that was them, and this is me, and here's what I'm going to do. Same with money. You can be the first in your family who leaves behind that sort of struggle with money. And again, I'm not talking numbers, because numbers are, helpful if they're bigger, and we find that people are happy when they have enough to pay their bills and do a little more. That's it. Pay your bills and do a little more, and people are happy. And then this weird thing happens when you add money. For many people, they just get more bills, so they still only have enough money to pay their bills and do a little more. It's an interesting thing. So the first thing is, like I said, if you're underemployed, what do we do about that? For some people, they are completely well employed, but they're still fighting to pay the bills, like I said, because we stretch. The more we have, the more we stretch. I think there's a metaphysical notion here that money governs what kind of person we are. And that is what we're going to unhook, right? We're going to unhook those things. So that is part of my big message. Okay, so what do I actually do when I work with people? I want to give you an overview. So as you probably have already figured out, I tend to bring lots of different things into my work with people. And I actually tell people, they say, well, what's the difference between educational psychology and psychology? Well, psychology, you often pick a path. You are Jungian or a Freudian, or you research cognitive psychology. You have a pathway. Educational psychology, especially at the doctorate level, is about what works. Here's all these theorists and all this research. What works? And then you get to choose. Because what works for one person won't work for another, right? If you have kids, you know this, right? You had the first one, and things worked out pretty well, the way you raised them, or not. Right? And then you have the second one, and you think, well, I'll just do the same thing, and it's a horrible failure, right? You totally have to change how you deal with them. So you actually had to change your personal parenting theories to raise your kids. So you know how to do this, and you know that this is true. That's educational psychology. We're going to figure out what works best with an individual. So what that means is I have lots of different things I pull from when I'm working with clients, and that you'll hear on this show. My goal is always to pull them back together, to weave it back. Okay? So, all right. So as you can tell, when I'm a professor, my lectures kind of go, but I always get back. I always get back. So, how do I work with people? Because I bring these disparate things in, I'm always looking for other ways of communicating. And I was at an amazing sort of lecture, a guy, so you can find him on YouTube, actually. His name is Matthew May. Has a great book out. He wrote it ages ago, and I've talked to him about it, or chatted on email with him about it. And it's about elegance, building elegance. So he's a designer, which you can tell when you read his stuff. He started as an artist, as a designer. But as he explored design theory, he realized these were things that we could apply to our life. I loved the notion. So, if I say elegance, you might be thinking pearls and white tablecloths and white and gold accoutrements. Think about it in terms of elegance for you. So elegance is really a way of expressing your inner self in the world without fear or apology. That's my definition of elegance. And I grabbed his steps and his notions to work with people around money, because that's what I want you to be able to do. Walk in your power in this world without fear or apology. And there's a way to do that. So he has 4 steps. I'm going to walk you through them today. We'll go into them in a little bit of detail. The 4 to start with are symmetry. So let me say them and then I'll come back. Symmetry, subtraction, which is his huge one. He now just lectures on subtraction, which is genius. Seduction, which is attracting and drawing. And then sustainability. How do you keep doing this? Okay, so those 4. Let me go back. What is symmetry? Okay, so symmetry, interestingly enough, isn't a repeating pattern that's boring. It's alignment. So let's go back to the beginning of this conversation. You have beliefs about money, beliefs about yourself. We all do. They came from our upbringing, from our grandparents. If you didn't have grandparents, from your culture, from your parents, from your school, from the way you were treated, from what you learned about yourself in the world. Okay? We learn about ourselves in here, and we learn about ourselves the way the world reacts to us and responds to us and what it says to us. So when it comes to career or money or prosperity or anything else, love and relationships, any of that stuff, we have a mental model of who we are. We also have a dream, a vision, a goal, who we want to be in this world. And those two, right, my mental model and my dream, have to be in symmetry. I have to align them. If I have a mental model that says, I come from a family that is kind and generous, but we're always poor. And my vision is, I would love to make enough money to be a major donor. I'd love to make enough money to buy my parents a house. Can you see there's a problem? My mental model says, I'm kind and generous, in part because I don't have money, and I don't make money. But my vision is to have enough money to be even kinder and more generous. That is where neuropsychology comes in, and that's my first step with clients. How do we look backward? And the end of this show, that's going to be your assignment, is how do you look backwards at your history? What is your mental model? How do you think about this stuff? What have you learned? Now, some of this is current culture. So, for example, most people that I know now have their bills on automatic pay, so they don't have to think about it. Nothing wrong with it. And they don't bother balancing their checkbook because that's kind of passé. And they might have numerous accounts that are doing the same thing. Money in, money out, not sure, haven't balanced. It's an interesting mental model about money. It comes in, it goes out, and I have no idea where it is or what it's doing, if there is a mistake. That mental model then leads to certain behaviors. What if you changed that mental model and treated your money like a friend? Because if you want to have enough money to be even kinder, to be a philanthropist, to be more generous, you have to like money. You have to treat it as if you care about it. And you have to be aware of it. So what if you checked in on those automatic payments? What if you balanced your checkbook? What if you had a basic knowledge at any point in time about how much money you have? How would that change your choices? And trust me, it would change your choices. It would also make you feel in control. It would also make you feel money wise, money smart. It might make you feel like you've done well, or that, wait a minute, this is not going the way I wanted it to, but I can make other choices. It puts you back in a relationship with money where you have a say. You get to do something. That mental model now starts to align with the craving, the desire to be a major donor. What if we all did that? So at the end of the year, what if we said, everyone from this radio show is going to be a philanthropist by the end of the year? And my definition of that, of course, is if you could give $1 a week somewhere, you're a philanthropist. What if we set that as a goal for this show? All of you are going to feel generous and know you have the money to do that and be a philanthropist by the end of 2020. We have this amazing group of people who are philanthropists from this show. It just came to me as a thought. So you sit with that and let me know what you think. Okay, so that's symmetry. Then what do? Well, believe it or not, we subtract. We don't add. It's sort of, just get this vision, right? If you're remodeling a house or redecorating, you don't just bring new stuff in. First you have to take stuff out. So you might have to demolition a room, right? If you want a new bathroom or whatever, you've got to take it apart. You have to demolition it. If you want to paint your room, you got to take stuff out. You have to take everything off the walls so you can paint. So any change, believe it or not, starts with subtraction. What do you no longer want to do? And yes, we have to add something, but we'll get to that, because it's easier to add than subtract, but we need to know what to subtract first. So what do you want to subtract? You might want to subtract the notions of who you are and who you can be in this world. Just saying, right? We all have our own kind of glass ceiling. Oh, I could never do that. You haven't tried. You don't know. Now, truly, some people I'm never going to be an opera singer. I mean, it's just like, I can't carry a tune. I don't have a great ear for music. I'm never going to be a concert pianist. I stopped playing piano at that level many, many years ago. I mean, practicing for that many years ago. And I'm probably not ever again going to be comfortable on double diamond ski runs. At least not doing them fast, because I don't do it enough. So sure, there are some realities. But within those other things we desire, we crave, we don't know if we could be good at them or not, if we've never tried. If we have a mental model that says we can't, then we don't try. What if we have a mental model that says, I don't know? I don't know. I read this recently in something I was studying, and I thought it was brilliant, that it was a spiritual teacher who was saying, practice saying, I don't know. Just practice saying that when it's true, because it will keep you from lying. It will keep you from feeling the need that you have to make something up, or that you have to, that you're embarrassed by not knowing something. Just practice saying that. I don't know. You may have said that if you're a parent to a kid who said, I don't like that food, whatever that is, and you said, well, I'm not sure you know because you haven't tasted it yet. And so that's what subtraction starts with. What do we take out? And what we take out is all the doubts, all the beliefs in there that say, I can't. And when we substitute, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. We subtract belief systems. And when we subtract those, we often subtract behaviors. And again, I'm not criticizing any behaviors, but I have had clients, again, who don't know where their money's going, don't know how much they have, and spend, a bit daily with coffee out and lunch out and dinner out, and then wonder why they don't have enough. So awareness allows us to subtract from our lives the attitudes, the mental models, the belief systems, the actions, and the behaviors that keep us trapped. And we'll work on that, right? What do I want to subtract? And it starts up here, trust me. It always starts in our mind. I learned that at Outward Bound, actually, and that was so long ago. It amazes me how long ago I was in Outward Bound. But I remember hiking, and I was so tired, I was hallucinating. And the leader of the group said, your mind will stop before your body. And he was right. My brain was having a great time visioning a helicopter rescuing me. But my body kept going. Often our mind stops us first. And talk to any athlete, and they will tell you, a lot of it is sort of mental models about success. Okay, so symmetry, subtraction, and then seduction, and I love that word. I have to let you know that this past year, 2019, I spent some time owning words that people might have said about me, just for the fun of it, right? And seduction was one of them. Taking that with pride. I've had people tell me that I'm a little scary, and so I've decided to own that too. But seduction sounds like one thing, but I mean it a little bit in a different way. Seduction is we draw things to us. Now, in the world of design, if you subtract, you create empty space, and empty space is seductive. We want to walk into it. We want to fill it. But now we can consciously fill it with something that's in alignment with our goals and dreams and where we want to be in life. That's why we go in this order, right? Where are we in alignment? What have I subtracted? How have I made space? And now I'm going to add, right? I'm going to add something. And what I'm going to add is in alignment with my vision and my dream. I'm going to add a belief system that I can try things. I'm going to add a belief system that I'm more capable than I thought. I'm going to add a belief system that says I may not know something, but I can learn it. Okay? I'm going to add something that says I'm going to stop using some excuses that were handed to me as a child. I'm going to stop using belief systems and coping mechanisms that maybe worked when I was young, but are now in my way. This is a lovely way to look at yourself without judgment. Just in terms of growth. Who do I want to be in this world? What do I want to draw to me? So this is where it sounds a little metaphysical, but there's actually some science behind it. And maybe that's the point of today, is to let you know that when I sound metaphysical, I've got some other science behind it. There are so many theories that support this. So to begin with, when we focus on something, we notice it more. There's this theory that I learned way back in psych. Probably learned it in a Psych 101 class somewhere. And there we called it the yellow Volkswagen theory. And it was that once you start thinking about yellow Volkswagens, you will see them everywhere. So think about how this has happened in your life. You go to a new restaurant, new to you, and then you go tell your friends, and all of a sudden everyone you know has been going to that restaurant. Or you think about buying a certain car, and all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. Or perhaps you're thinking about a vacation to somewhere, and all of a sudden it seems like everyone you know is going there. What we attend to, we notice. What we focus on and think about, we notice in the world. So if we think about the world as a place full of opportunities, we see opportunities. If we think about the world as a scary, dangerous place, we see a lot of danger. If we think about ourselves and focus on, oh, I could try that, I could learn that, our brain then, we're telling our brain to focus on opportunities, ways we can learn new things in our life. That's what our brain does. We're wired that way. It's for hunting. If you're thinking about looking, you're out, sort of basic human evolution. You're out looking for berries. You need to be able to spot the berries. If you're a hunter-gatherer, out looking for the right prey, you need to be able to spot it. Our brain is wired that way. It's not magic. It's brain wiring. It's neuropsychology. So what you focus on, you see. And then what you see and what you attend to, you can attract to you. It's an attraction as in, I can try it, I can do it, I can build a relationship with that. It's not that it mysteriously floats down the hallway and shows up in your house. It's that you see it, you see how you can get it, and that in that way it is actually being attracted to you. You're filling your space with the things you are now focusing on. And those things you're focusing on are the things in alignment with the future that you want. Okay, so let me play out an example for that, right? And so one of my clients had a job, and she was pretty good at it, but she was not a good cultural fit with the company she was in. And she knew that. And it was kind of getting harder and harder and harder. And she came into my office and she said, I don't know what to do. And we went through what would she like to do, what were her yearnings, what was her cravings, and she really wanted to be a provost at an institution. So think of that as an academic vice president, if that makes sense. Or upper management, if that makes sense. I said, okay, all right. Let's do this. And we're going to do some real actions. But what is your belief system about yourself? What's getting in your way? And of course, her belief system was that she had children and you couldn't do that while you had children. And I mean, there were tons of things in there that we kind of had to face and subtract. You just had to look at, here's what you want. Here's the belief systems in your way. Let's subtract these. Okay. As we subtract them, what did we start to add? Here's the seduction part. A belief system about her own capabilities. A belief system about what she was good at and what she could be good at. And how she could stretch. And how she didn't have to have 100% of the experience, the list of experiences on the job description. She could apply, she could interview, she could stretch. We worked, I think it was a 6-month period. Pretty sure it was 6 months. And boom, she landed this job. And she landed it, which is fascinating to me, with an institution that she didn't think would hire her. It was the simplest application process she did because she was pretty sure they wouldn't hire her. So she didn't stress about it. She didn't stumble over each word on her resume and her letter and her application. She just sort of presented herself fully. And they grabbed her up. And she's joyfully happy. She subtracted. She figured it out. We built alignment. She subtracted. And then she focused on what she really wanted. And that is what showed up in her life. Physical example, right? The action-based example with these sort of metaphysical principles built in. Okay, and then what's the last step? Sustainability. What does that mean? It doesn't mean freeze in place. Sustainability is about being adaptable, being able to change, being able to move, being able to know that you have to still learn. Environments change, jobs change. We know that there are jobs in the future that don't exist right now. So that there are people graduating from college, traditional students graduating from college, who will probably have at least 8 jobs or even careers in their lifetime. And some of those do not yet exist. Sustainability is not about holding firm and never changing. Sustainability is about this cycle. Where else do you want to be? And happy is obviously a state of being present in the moment. But what else do you want in life? Do you want to grow? Life will change. How do you stay relevant? How do you grow with it? Okay, there's some subtraction in there and some seduction in there. And the sustainability then is about continuing on that path. So just think about that sort of whole process for a minute and how that's played in your life. And I'm going to actually try to do something tricky here. I have my laptop here. And I am going to update it for the radio station and try to see if I can really multitask and just get into the Facebook site. Okay, so I'm not going to look at myself because that would be very bad, right? That would be very bad. But if you feel like posting, please do, because I have it pulled up. And with any luck, I should be able to see your comments and your thoughts, and that's really important to me. Okay, so where do we go with this? Here's what I'd love for you to think about doing, to go back to the first step here. Everybody has a financial history. I was reading this great book, and it said that every millionaire out there lost all their money at some point in time. So they made money in their 20s, they lost it in their 30s, they learned a lot of lessons, and then they made it later. Most millionaires who are just sort of have about $1 million, somewhere, you know how they made it? I'm going to shock you. They had a job, they spent less than they made, and they saved money. And the earlier you start saving, the more to cruise. We now think about millionaires as somebody who did something brilliant. They invented a product, they opened a business, they're a CEO. Most people get there by living life within sort of the means that they make, and they may make more money, but they're also appreciative and kind, and they're all those other things. That's where how most people do this. But to do that, you first have to be aware of your own financial history. So here's what I'd love it if you would do. I would love it if you would, yes, I'm glancing at my laptop over here. I would love it if you would take some time this week to reflect on your financial history. Just think about it. What did you hear growing up? And this is not about blame, and it's not about anger, and it's not about saying anybody, oh my gosh, I'm a victim. It's not about that. It's about the mental model you built because of your life experience. And so, what is it? And how much of it do you still believe? And what in it still works for you? And I think that last thought's really important. What still works for you? What would you like to change in that mental model? What would you like to let go of? So how do you build that history? You think about the things that were said to you. You look back at your own money pattern. What have you done? Where have you spent it? And you might actually want to spend some time looking at how you're spending it now. Inflow, right? So where's it coming in? Where is it going? It's sort of an amazing thing, isn't it, that we spend money sometimes very unconsciously, especially now that we all have plastic. It just kind of goes, and we're sometimes not sure. I'm not telling you to budget. I'm not doing this. I just want you to become aware of it, because that is the first powerful step in changing this. Now, you may have a great relationship with money, and if you do, please let me know. I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to hear how you got there. And some of the guests I'm going to bring in do have great relationships with money. But you still might want some changes in your life, or maybe the relationship you're looking at is a relationship with a person. Same steps, same thing. What's the mental model, and how do you have to change that? And we will talk about why change is so hard. Our brains are just wired. There's another theory, Hebb's theory. It's H-E-B-S. You can look it up. Might be two B's, I'm not sure. And it is the neurons in the synapses in our brain that fire together, wire together. So what does that mean? It means if we continually do certain things and enjoy certain things, those centers of our brain get stronger. We want to change centers in our brains. We either have to physically move differently, or we have to unwire things. Habits are ways that we have formed patterns in our brain. I get home from work and I walk in the door, and here's the things I do. And there's nothing wrong with those patterns. There's nothing wrong with that. Unless they're patterns that are keeping us trapped. So, for example, if you want to be able to go for a walk every day at lunch, there has to be a habit you build about having workout clothes with you, and about getting to your lunchtime and not thinking, just moving into that habit of doing something different. Same with money. So the things we do that wire together form very strong points and patterns in our brain. And when we want to change, we have to unwire that. And we got to rewire it over here. How do we do that? We stop doing this, we're thinking this, and we start thinking this and doing this. Okay? That is why change is difficult. Right? Because honestly, in our evolution, change was not as important necessarily for long periods of time. Let's do a couple other things. So one is your financial history. What are your behaviors? What are your habits? You may not even know them because you sort of just do them. We're all like that. There are things we don't even notice about ourselves. Friends do. Other people do, right? Our checkbook does. Our checkbook notices. You may not notice. So try to be aware of those and just decide if you like it or not. No judgment. Is it working for you? Is it not working for you? Is it working for the future you? Is it not working for the future you? That's the big question. And then just some hints on how to start some kind of simple changes with money. The first is gratitude, and this is huge in any situation. Gratitude opens other doors for us. Gratitude changes our brain wiring. It absolutely does. If you are paying bills and you're writing that out, or you're paying it online, and of course if it's automatic payment, you don't think about it, but I'm suggesting maybe you at least notice it. Do it with a little bit of happiness that you have the money to pay the bill. Instead of sort of the anger or the tenseness or the, why do I have to do this? Try that. Wow, I'm really grateful I have this money. And I'm really grateful that I'm able to pay off this debt or afford this experience or the food or whatever it might be. Just a little gratitude. Be grateful when you receive money. Now, you probably think you are. And maybe you are, I don't know. But for so many of us, there's this sort of tug of war. We receive money and we skip right over to, oh my gosh, I got to pay this bill. We don't stop and sort of just be grateful that the money came in, that I have a job, or somebody gave me a loan, or I won some money, or however it might be. Somebody paid me back. I got a refund. Say thank you. Just say thank you to the money. Wow. Or just say it out loud. I'm so grateful. I feel so blessed. I'm so grateful. That changes your brain. It changes how you feel, right? It puts a smile on your face, and that changes your brain chemistry. I encourage you to be a philanthropist. Can you donate? Just donate. This isn't about tipping. This is about donating. There is a Jewish tradition of having a tzedakah box, and it's a box that you have somewhere that you put change in. Just any of your loose change you put in. Maybe you put it in once a week. And when the box is full, you take it somewhere and donate it. So once you put the money in there, it's not yours anymore. And sometimes I take mine to the animal shelter. Or I'll be on my way to the animal shelter and I'll see somewhere else I could donate it. You become a philanthropist. Pennies a day. And you're a philanthropist. You're giving back. Very good thing to do because you're joyfully sharing money. You're saying, I have enough. In fact, I have more than enough. I have enough to share. And then, and I already said this one at the beginning of the show, but visit your money. Check in. Don't just pay the bills, right? Don't have all of that automatic. Look at your money. Check in with your money. See what you have. Treat it like a friend. Okay. Why do I want you to do all this? We just have a very few minutes left on the show. Because through this next year, we're going to work through lots of this stuff. This is the overview. The first part, and the part I'd love to have you think about this year, is what is your vision for who you want to be and how you want to be in the world? And how do you move into alignment with that? Again, this is not a New Year's resolution where you try to set yourself up to do something you don't want to do. This is, who do I want to be? And it can be lots of things. It can be more generous or kinder or more studied or go back to school or, adopt an animal. It could be anything. How do we do that? How do we move into that together? And I like I said, I had this interesting idea that just came to me on the show. What if everybody listening in was a philanthropist? By my definition, okay? By the end of this year. Wow. That's an awful lot of ripples going out. Actions that we are taking to change the world in a way that we feel is positive. And I'd say make it a charity. Some sort of charity, right? Veterans Pride's a great one, right? My sponsor, if you're interested in that one. Veterans Pride is amazing. But where do you feel like you can help change the world? What I'd say is this is a really wonderful year to do that. So I'm not seeing any comments in Facebook, which might mean I'm not doing it right. So I apologize if you have been commenting and you're not there. I do apologize. But I want to thank you so much for being with me in this hour. I will be back in 2 weeks to continue this conversation. Please let me know what you thought about this show, what you want to do here on future shows, and how I can more engage you. And if you leave this show with more questions than you started with, or a sense of joy, or a sense of possibility, I have done my job, and I have not wasted your time. And I really want this to be a really good hour for you, an hour where you feel that you've spent your time well. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and thank you for joining me at the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS Radio.